Still drinking coffee from yesterday. Not really. I recorded this show and the previous show same day. Still drinking the coffee. We're about, well, by the time you see this, a week into the first week of baseball. Who's not happy? I mean, if your team's not winning, well, they'll win. But man, is it nice to see baseball back again. I just can't wait for the weather to break here. It keeps kind of dipping and, and then it gets warm again and then it dips again. Anyway, let's talk about what we're doing here today, you and me. I'm the big guy. This is Cardboard Meditation, and we are taking a look at the 1970 Topps Supers. These cards right here. Each card measures 3 1/8 by 5 1/4. They got rounded corners. The fronts are borderless, and they have the same backs as the 1970 regular issued set. They were distributed nationally. People have said, like I said in my first video, that these were a test issue. They were not. I will show you the test issue that they were brought out of was this one. And you can see the size difference. This is the test issue. This is the regular issue from that year. You could get these anywhere where there were baseball cards being sold. These were a little tougher. A lot of what I read about is these were only in New York or in the New York area. All right. You can get them anywhere you want. 24 packs a box, 3 cards in a pack, plus a stick of gum. Good gum back then. And they were 10 cents a piece. Okay. Let's get into this. Oh, right after this.
Hey, baseball fan. Time for a little self-care and a few minutes of cardboard meditation. Welcome to the show that features some of baseball's oddest stories and the cardboard slabs that document them. Find peace and joy through baseball cards with your host, the big guy.
Oh, that's good coffee. Okay, first, let me tell you, I'm going to remind you probably several times during the course of this video, I was 10 years old when these cards came out, and I was buying these off the shelf and putting them in my collection, and I enjoyed them very much. Only about a third of this set is what I collected, and I have not updated them. I've not bought up to get them out of my collection because they're not as good a shape as the other cards, because those are the cards I collected, and that's the nostalgia part of this whole hobby. But one of the things that I will admit to is being a 10-year-old, it was not cool. I was not a cool 10-year-old. I was a little fat kid that loved baseball and was obsessing with it. And that's why I love this card. Now, I love this card. I love Dick Bosman because I like the way he signed his name. He used a star to dot the I in Dick. His 1971 card, like this one, similar pose, same signature. I thought it was cool. I mean, every signature I've seen outside of this card, of the 1971 Dick Bosman card, does not dot the I with a star. Only these two cards. In fact, the signature that I've seen outside of these two cards does not even match this one. This one's nice. It's a nice signature. The ones that I show here, they don't even look the same. One incredibly interesting thing about Dick Bosman is he pitched the final opening day for the Washington Senators back in 1971. And he pitched for opening day for the Texas Rangers, who were the Washington Senators, in 1972. And apparently he's a third cousin. That's what they say. At least this is what he is saying. If he is related, he's a third cousin, that being Dwayne Kuiper, one-time infielder for the Giants and announcer as well. Card number 22 in the 1970 Topps Supers, Dick Bosman, with a star. Oh, and I want to show you too, I'm wearing my Jim Leland commemorative cap. I think they gave these away at Comerica Park. I got this as a gift. Thank you. I know everybody knows that I love all these Tiger hats. All right, card number 23. Let me tell you, I was a 10-year-old kid. I've said that already. As a young collector, I always felt ripped off when players didn't have a hat on, or the bill of the cap was tilted back so you couldn't see the MLB emblem. You know what I'm talking about? You know the ones? I'm sure you do. I knew why. It was because Topps wasn't sure if the player would be on that team, or team-wise, it was just better to leave the emblem off if they weren't going to be with that team. And I didn't like that. But I guess I also didn't like a picture of the player on a team that didn't match the text listing him on a different team, like he's playing for the Astros, yet his uniform says Phillies or something like that. Yeah, anyway. Tim McCarver's card right here is one of those Atlas pictures. In the next 20-some cards, there's 3 of them, this one included. You'll see the other ones soon. They have the same harsh hairstyle. And growing up in the 70s, that just didn't look right. Not this, anyway. McCarver went on to play in several different World Series and was an announcer for years. And this is not indicative of a 1970s haircut. Tim just passed away like a few years ago, and I was shocked to hear it because he just seems so vibrant all the time. But sorry, I don't like this card, Tim. What team do you play for? Got to look it up on the back. All right. Are you ready for another one of those cards that just look absolutely beautiful? I won't make you wait. Card number 24, Hank Aaron. Now, I bought this card much later in my collecting career, probably around, 1979 maybe. And I was 19 at that time, and I hadn't seen the card before. So I was mesmerized when I saw this at an antique store, and I paid $2 for this. Back then it was kind of a lot of money for a 9-year-old card, but it paid off. What's cool about this Hank Aaron 1970 card was that this represented the year 1970 that Aaron got his 3,000th hit. Great job, Hank. We love you. That was a great year. I'm just going to let you look at that for just a couple more seconds. The great Hank Aaron. Okay, this next guy, I remember being a teenager when all the stuff about this guy was going down. He was a good hitter, a good pitcher. I mean, he was really special. Andy Messersmith. Card number 25. He was a good pitcher. His career record was 130 wins and 99 losses. And he had a 2.86 ERA, 1,625 strikeouts. He was a 4-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glove winner, and he even led the National League in wins in 1974 with 20. And I remember he was one of the first players to be traded for a whole bunch of players. It made no sense to the 10-year-old in me. I guess actually I was 14 when the trade went down. He and Ken McMullen for the Angels were traded to the Dodgers for Frank Robinson, Bill Singer, Billy Grabarkowitz, Bobby Valentine, and Mike Strawler. Now, other than Strawler, these were kind of big names at the time, especially Frank Robinson, who's in the Hall of Fame. And I just could not understand why so many people were traded for this guy. Who's this guy? I don't know. Now, that's not what the big thing that Messersmith was known for, although in my little world it was. But there was a much bigger thing, a much more historical thing that Mr. Messersmith was known for. He was known for becoming the first player to become a free agent. Now, you see, while trying to negotiate his contract in 1975, he asked for a no-trade clause, which is pretty common these days. And the Dodgers refused. And Andy said that the Dodger GM, Al Campanis, insulted him. And he decided not to deal with anyone in the Dodger organization lower than team president Pete O'Malley. That is cocky. Guy had stones. So he pitched without a contract in 75, and he planned to retire, but the Players Union director, Marvin Miller, kind of helped him along with his grievance case and got him a new deal before the end of the season. And that kind of ended the reserve clause era and gave players more control of their careers and kind of their destiny. And this guy was one of the first to do it. Him and Dave McNally. Although McNally didn't finish his year, Dave McNally was another one who kind of helped usher that along. But Andy Messersmith was the guy that was known for that. All right, another Hall of Famer here. Like I told you, they're packed. This set is packed full of Hall of Famers. Number 26, Tony Oliva. He was a consistent hitter for 14 years, all with the Twins, the only team he'd ever known. He was the American League batting champ 3 times in 1964, 1965, and 1971. And it's a weird story. He's from Cuba, and he came to the U.S. in 1961 and appeared in the final 3 games of Twins spring training that year. And he had 10 at-bats, and he had 7 hits. Now, that would be raising your eyebrows if you were in the coaching staff. But the Twins already had their roster full, so they cut Oliva. I'm not sure if it was DFA'd back then or not, but he was cut and wasn't on the team. Now, there were some thoughts that the cutting was done because he was a poor outfielder, but he ended up in the state of North Carolina, and he was training with a friend that was still playing for the Class A team for the Twins. And Phil Hauser, who was the GM for that team, the Class A team, called the Twins management back in Minnesota and said, hey, you've got to resign this guy. He's really quite the slugger. They did. And, well, like they say, the rest is history. But you ever wonder how many times somebody who had their chance and weren't recognized for being a good player never made it to the league, and we never got a chance to see them? And they left, and they went on to do something else with their life. We were robbed. Well, thankfully not with Mr. Pedro Oliva, better known as Tony. Okay, the next player here is a guy, much like Oliva early in his day, was underrated. And I think every Yankee fan is going to go, yes, amen. And that is Mel Stottlemyre. Mel was really underrated. He often was league leader in several categories during the 60s and 70s. For the Yankees and for the league, it was, he started to climb up the Yankee ladder, and, well, the Yankee team kind of got stagnant. Although 1964 was a great year, the year he came out, the next decade saw the team just, start to age. People were retiring, succumbing to injuries, getting traded away. And a lot of fans and sports writers noticed how great his play was, but they felt that maybe Stottlemyre came to the Yankees 10 years too late. If he'd have been around in the early 60s, back when they were really cooking, he would have been had some great stats and would have been up there maybe with Whitey Ford. After his playing years, Mel became a fine pitching coach, winning 5 World Series titles with the Mets and the Yanks, and he influenced a lot of great pitchers: Roger Clemens, Dwight Gooden, David Cohn, Ron Darling, and more. He was very influential in baseball after he retired. Mel Stottlemyre. He had a couple kids that played too. Mel and Todd. Mel Jr. Okay, you want to see a real interesting card? When I was a kid, I never saw this. I saw this as an adult. It almost stopped me in my tracks. I wondered what it was because I'd never seen it before. And when I got up on it, I said, oh, it's got the rounded corners. It's one of those top supers. Was it from 70 or 71? Well, it was from 70. This is a great card. Just Reggie's picking up a few bats from the on-deck circle, at least I think. And he's got that beautiful Yankee facade behind him. And that's a little foretelling there, isn't it? A little something's going to happen later on. We're all aware of what he could do in the years to follow, 1970. But on the back of the card, there's a little cartoon that says, Reggie had 10 RBIs in one game. And it happened on 6/14/1969. I had to figure out, how did that happen? It was his rookie year. Well, here's how it went down. Reggie single-handedly crushed the Boston Red Sox in Fenway, June 14th, 1969, and that's when he had his 21st and 22nd home runs of that year. He hit a double and 2 bases-loaded singles, knocking in 10 runs for a 21-7 victory. And it's noted that the defense in Boston that day wasn't very good. Come on, you going to use that "sun was in my eye" excuse? This guy was amazing. And there he is, starring in Yankee Stadium long before the spotlight was on him. Okay, we got another Hall of Famer. And this is a great card. If somebody is a Carl Yastrzemski fan, they're going to want this card. Card number 29. He was a modern-day icon for the Red Sox. There was Ted Williams before him, and there was, all the other ball players that came before that. But this guy represented the 60s and 70s for the Red Sox. He was the man. And he wasn't just that there by default. He wasn't a, by default icon. This guy earned it. He won the Triple Crown and winning the MVP both in 1967. He had 18 All-Star appearances. He was a 3-time batting champion, so much more. And He would have won many more accolades if they had just given out awards for pranks. Yeah, Carl was a jokester. He was second to none in that department. Louis Tiant once said that Yaz would burn your clothes and nail your shoes to the floor. Okay. At one time, Yaz and teammate Gary Peters brought a live snake into the clubhouse and put it in Luis Aparicio's locker. Now, Luis was deathly afraid of snakes, and when he opened that up and the snake came out, they grabbed it and chased him, and Luis Aparicio ran out of the locker room, across the hall, into the street, butt naked, and yelling and screaming all the way at the sight of that snake. Come on, Carl. It's pretty funny, though. Card number 29, Carl Yastrzemski, legendary Red Sox. This next card is one of my favorites in this set. And not because he was, a superstar in the Hall of Fame, but it's the composition and color of this card. This is Jim Fregosi. Now, I really enjoyed looking at this card, as a kid and as an adult, because it's, well, like I said, first of all, it's the photo, the composition, it's him bunting, and then the color. The helmet there doesn't really match the color of the uniform. It's a version of maybe the road gray there. Maybe it's a road blue. I don't know. It's just color and everything else. And then that light on the helmet, you can see it right there between the C and the A. That light, that little hint of reflection, adds so much dimension to the card. It really pops. And I always liked Fregosi as a kid. And, I thought he was a superstar when I was growing up. He was, he was always hitting and fielding, and he was always held in high esteem. And he was a good ball player. He was a 6-time All-Star. He was a Gold Glove winner. He's a pretty good manager later on. But I always hear and see a story about him that I don't appreciate. And I don't know how you feel about it. But he's remembered for the most lopsided trade in baseball history. He's remembered for being the big chip coming from the Angels to the Mets for Nolan Ryan. Yeah, he got traded for Nolan Ryan. Now, Ryan wasn't the big flamethrower at that time. He was still developing. So it's not like they said, yeah, this guy's one of our great up-and-coming prospects. But it is true. He should be remembered for just being a good player. That's what I'm saying. Not just that fact that he was a loser and got traded off for a winner. I don't like that. But I do love that card. I hope you like it too. Okay, remember when I was talking about pictures of people that didn't have hats? There's one. Veda Pinson, another hatless picture that I really hate. And when I was a kid, I thought this could be any guy. This could be a guy just standing around at the bus station they took a photo of, or standing in line at the supermarket. Anybody could stand in for Veda Pinson. We don't know who he is. But, with the hat off, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to recognize somebody. But it does give you a point of reference, right? Come on, I was 10 years old. Give me a break, But if I was wearing a hat, you'd oh, wait a minute. I am wearing a hat. So now I am the big guy. If I took this off, you may not recognize me. All right. I'm going off into the weeds here. So, who does he play for, you think? Was it St. Louis? Was it Cleveland? It was Cleveland. So, one of the things I know about Veda Pinson, that other than the fact that he's not wearing a hat here, he was really, really good. He was right on the cusp, right on the edge of superstar. He played with a lot of other guys who brought out the best in him, and he brought out the best in them. Veda Pinson, if you don't know, was a star. He just didn't know it. Most other people didn't either. He was underrated. He had 18 years in the league. He had a 286 average. He hit 2,757 hits. That's a lot of hits. There's guys in the Hall of Fame that don't have that many. He had 1,365 runs, 256 home runs, and 305 stolen bases. This guy, he was a star. Not only does he deserve maybe getting into the Hall of Fame, he deserves a baseball card with a ball cap on. Veda Pinson, card number 31. All right. You thought we were done whining about hatless baseball cards, but we're not. Last one of these that are in this second half of the set of 1970 Top Supers. And, well, it just looks like Lou had the same barber as Tim McCarver, doesn't it? You got to remember, if you're of my age, the 60s and 70s, they weren't really the decades of crew cuts. But thanks to Topps and their hatless photos, we now know that those haircuts did exist during the days of hippies. I remember a lot of things about Lou Piniella. You know, what do you remember about him? Well, I remember how he looks on 3 rookie cards. The 1964 card, number 167. The 1968 card, number 16. The 1969 card, number 394. Now, I suppose you could actually throw in the 1970 card, number 321, with the Topps Rookie All-Star Trophy. 4 rookie cards? Okay. There's also another card of him that I need to get because I'm a collector of Burger King cards, and it's his 1977 card, which was a short print and was added to the set much later. But I need to get that because, well, I've got the set. I just don't have this special card because George Steinbrenner, this was his favorite player, and he wanted him in the Burger King set. So he made him print it up and put it in, and it just didn't make the set. So it's kind of outside of the set. So it's a short print. But it is a part of the set, technically. Now, when I think about Lou, I always think about this one episode that I saw on This Week in Baseball. I'm sure you're probably going to remember this too. About it. He's always being thrown out of ball games. That was always a big thing of his. But it was like the time he was managing the Mariners, and he got really mad. He was out there yammering onto the umpire right in his face, and he got mad because he lost his hat. Then he tried kicking his hat around. When he was so upset, he was running around just kicking it, and he was missing it, and it would like bounce off the side of his foot, and then it would go up in the air, and he kept kicking it. And as he was stomping off the field after being thrown out of the game, the hat was sitting there, and he kind of walked up and kicked it again, and the crowd just started yelling, and they were booing him before, but maybe they were saying Lou, I don't know, but they cheered him when he kicked the hat for the final time. Doesn't matter. It was silly. Lou Piniella. One of the greatest pitchers of the era, card number 33, Bob Gibson. He was the best pitcher in baseball for quite a few years, especially the last few years of the 60s and going into the early 70s. Primarily in 1968, that was his best year. And that's the year people like to quote when they talk about great pitchers. You know, the pitcher with the best year would have been Bob Gibson, 1968. 22 wins, 1.12 ERA, 13 shutouts, 268 strikeouts, 28 complete games, the MVP and Cy Young Awards for that league. And it was the year of the pitcher because Denny McClain that year had 31 wins. And there were a lot of other pitchers at that time just throwing great ball. Beautiful card. I feel a lot of Gibson's cards kind of look like this. Even this one, however, if you get a good version of it, and you can see mine is a little beat up because this was one of my original cards, and I'm not going to change it. You can see down here at the bottom how miscut that is, and even the back is really miscut. And it's got some creases. I don't know how the heck you crease one of these things, but I did it back in the day. But I feel this might be the finest Bob Gibson card you can get. I think this one is nice. And this one doesn't have that great color register. It might be faded by the sun a little bit, but if you get one that's got some really good color, this is the card. This is the Gibson card. All right. Whoa. Almost dropped this card, and it wouldn't have mattered. You couldn't ding the corner with it. Already rounded. The card number 34 is Pete Rose. And he's got such a storied history. You've probably heard all the stories you need to hear about Pete Rose. But have you ever heard that Pete Rose, back in 1978, almost signed with the Kansas City Royals? He was almost a Royal. Really, he got that close. Became a free agent in 1978. And he was out shopping around for a team, and he contacted the Royals. And Pete just let Cincinnati let him leave. And so, the Royals got tired of getting beat by the Yankees in the ALCS, so they went after some power. Now, they went after some hits, some hitting power. So Ewing Kauffman, who was the Royals owner, and his GM Joe Burke met with Pete and made him an offer. And according to Pete, it was a quote, a tremendous offer. And according to Kauffman, his proposed contract would have made him the highest paid Royal player. Pete also said that the Royals were a first-class operation and a wonderful team to play with. And, he said that they knew the secret to happiness is just winning. That's what he said. And he also liked the idea of becoming a designated hitter because he was 37 at the time. And plus, there was the mention of managing, maybe at a minor league level, and then working his way up. And that was stuff that Pete desired. He wanted that. So he was real close to signing. And Kauffman told Rose that he'd love to have Rose come to Kansas City while he's chasing down the hit records of Stan Musial and Ty Cobb. And Kauffman said, I got a 50-50 chance of signing Pete Rose to the roster here. And he was very confident that that was going to happen, even at 50-50. Well, it didn't happen. And Pete decided to sign with the Phillies, and he managed to do most of the things he wanted to do in Philly instead of KC, and that was the end of that story. But could you imagine maybe seeing Pete Rose batting leadoff and then George Brett hitting after him? Rose and Brett together? That would have been a story. Okay, another one of those ball players that has a storied past, and it was one of those things where he's underrated, and a lot of people didn't give him credit right away. He was 5'9", 160 pounds, so James Wynn was a smaller man, but the power he possessed was unimaginable. That's the word to use, because most people couldn't believe this small ball player could hit the ball so hard, and he did. Some coaches down in Houston had it their way. You'd never know Jim Wynn. Never know him as the Toy Cannon. That was his nickname, because he was small and he just blasted home runs and extra bases. Several of the Houston coaches thought that his short stature, and speed were a recipe for, ball players like Maury Wills, and that's what they were going to try and have him do. But they advised Jimmy to shorten his swing, learn to bunt, and, steal bases. But Jimmy listened to a different coach, that being his dad. His dad, Joe, was a one-time amateur ball player whose hero was Hank Aaron, and he went up to his son. Joe said to James, swing hard, just like Hank. That's what he did. He became a slugger that was destined just to become a big-time ball player down in Houston during the years when Houston didn't have a great team. But this guy shined like a star. James the Toy Cannon Wynn. Okay, we had talked earlier about a couple of cards that are supposed to be short print. The next three are the three supposed short prints. This one being Ollie Brown. And you can see, again, the miscut on this one. It's this one's pretty bad. Get it up there kind of close so you can see it. I'm not showing that off because I'm proud of miscut cards, but I want you to see it in case you want to collect these, because you can collect these without that. You just have to shop around for a better card. But like I said, some of these I pulled out of a pack when I was a kid, and I'm not going to update them. Those are the cards that I pulled out, and nostalgically, they're the ones that give me the most pleasure. So card number 36, Ollie Brown. The PSA report, population report, like I said that these cards are not short prints. There's a lot of them that have been graded, so they know that there's a lot of them out there. But Ollie had an interesting story regarding his journey to the major leagues way back in 1962. Now, he's from Southern Cal, so as an outfielder, he was traveling with a minor league team in West Virginia, and when the bus pulls up to a hotel where all the white players get off the bus and stay at the hotel, all the black players, they're taken off to a private home of a black family that took him in, along with all the other black players that was where they stay while they're on the road. Yeah, it was during that time, back in the early 60s. You would not think that. That sounds like something from the 40s and 50s, but no, and it didn't sit well with Ollie. And when he got back from the road trip, he demanded from the Giants that they move him to another organization or he'd quit. And the Giants did just that. They didn't want to lose him. So they moved him to Illinois, where he just thrived. And later they moved on to Class A Fresno, in 1964, where he hit 40 home runs. And he earned the name Downtown Ollie Brown because the home plate faced the downtown area, and he was hitting it out toward downtown. Card number 36, Downtown Ollie Brown. Not a rare card. This card was also thought to be rare. The great Frank Robinson. This guy, he had a presence no matter where he was at on the ball field or even in the clubhouse or getting food at a restaurant or standing in line somewhere. People saw him and he had a presence. Regardless of being a player or a manager, which he was both, he had swagger. And he instilled mental focus and execution as a player to his fellow players and to his players when he was managing. He didn't like it when people screwed up. And one time when Don Buford, his best friend, noticed something, he said, when he spoke, you listened. He knew the game better than anyone and why games were won and lost. He knew why. And that was the attitude that made him a good manager, too. And that's what he was. He was a good manager, the first black manager in the major leagues. And he did that for the Cleveland Indians in 1974. Frank Robinson won the Triple Crown. Okay, this is the final card that's supposed to be a short print. It is not. When I bought this card, this is a card that I bought. Must have been the late 70s, early 80s. It's not in the greatest of shape. But I remember thinking, oh, I got the hard one. This was the one that was supposed to be the hardest to get. Card number 38, Boog Powell. It's not rare. At least that's what the big boys were telling me. John Wesley Powell, better known as Boog. He's a big guy playing for those great Baltimore Orioles teams in the early 70s. He received a nickname from his dad who, upon finding out that his kid was doing some mischievous things, said, what did he say? He goes, what's that booger been up to now? And Boog became a nickname. Just be thankful that didn't happen to you. Boog Powell. All right. Another card, a little miscut, but now we're past that now. We now know that that's going to happen. So, Willie Davis, card number 39. And when you're a kid, you're easily confused. At least I was. Maybe you were a super kid and you didn't get confused that easily, but I certainly was, and I always got Willie Davis confused with someone else. There were so many Willies back in the 1970s. Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, Willie Stargell, and later Willie McGee and Willie Wilson. Willie Davis kind of got lost in there somewhere, at least with me. I always thought he was someone else. Willie was a good player, though, and he grew up just 3 miles from where he would get his start right there at Dodger Stadium. That's true. Right down the street. That's where he lived. He actually replaced Hall of Famer in the Dodger outfield, Duke Snider, back in 1960. Now, I remember having a 1961, I still have it, 61 Topps Duke Snider card where he's playing for the Dodgers. And so it was that year, 1960, that he kind of started being squeezed out. He was an older man at that time. And in 1969, Willie had a 31-game hitting streak, which is a franchise record, which used to be held by Hall of Famer Zach Wheat. Willie Davis, card number 39. All right. Another ball player that I absolutely loved as a kid because I was able to watch WGN and see some of these great Chicago Cubs. Sweet swinging Billy Williams was noticed for his playing ability by Hall of Famer Rogers Hornsby, who was one of his coaches in the minor leagues. He said early on that Billy Williams was going to be one of the future batting title winners. And he said that before he ever got to the big leagues. He was basing that on minor league stats and experience. And that's exactly what this guy did in 1972. He also won Rookie of the Year in 1961. But he was a batting title winner in 1972 for the Chicago Cubs. Number 40, Billy Williams. Now, the 41st card looks very, very familiar to me. I think this photograph was used for another card. And that's one of the things about this set. You don't see a lot of these photos being used, not a lot of them, some of them, for other cards. Whereas Some of the other sets are just like this set, the 1969 set. They used a lot of the same pictures in that they did in 1968 and 67. These are different, but this card just seems familiar to me. This is card number 41, Rusty Staub, the only player to ever hit 500 hits for 4 different teams. Did it for the Astros, the Expos, the Tigers, and the Mets. And funny story, Rusty, well, I don't know how funny it was down in spring training in 1972 where the Expos and the Mets were, working out during spring training. And on Holy Saturday, Rusty had gone to church where he ran into Gil Hodges and his coaching staff. They were there too, and they were attending a service. And the next day was Easter. So, of course, everybody attended there again. And Rusty saw Gil again and walked up and talked to him. And he said, Gil and the staff were just so nice to him. They just had a lot of great things to say. They greeted him. They shook his hand. They said, we really love the way you play. We're very impressed with your hitting abilities. And Rusty thought, these are a great bunch of guys. He was just so enthralled with how nice this coaching staff was. Well, Rusty didn't know it at the time, but he had been traded to the Mets. And they didn't say anything because they were waiting for, the medical stuff to come through and the physicals and all that stuff to come back. But later that day, on Easter Day, Gil Hodges was out on the golf course and he had a massive heart attack and died. And Rusty never got a chance to talk to him again. That was it. That one-time encounter in church on Easter Sunday was the very last and first time that Rusty had a conversation with one-time manager Gil Hodges. And of course, later on, the day of the funeral, as a matter of fact, Rusty was traded to the Mets for Tim Foley, Mike Jorgensen, and Ken Singleton. Okay, this is the last card right here. Last card of the 1970 Top Supers. This is Tommy Agee. And he was a member of the 1969 Miracle Mets World Series team along with his childhood friend Cleon Jones. Later on, they owned a bar together, a little nightclub. It was down in East Elmhurst in New York. It was called the Outfielders Lounge. Now, on that site, the building has been torn down. And that former site is now called the Tommy L. Agee Educational Campus. And it's an elementary school for kids. And it's on the site of his old bar. He was a great ball player. Last card in the set, number 42, Tommy Agee. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed these cards as much as I did. And I'm glad you put up with some of the cards that weren't in great shape, but those are the ones that bring me joy. That's what this hobby's all about. So anyway, if you could, like, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to hear what you had to say. And we'll talk soon.
Cardboard meditation helps set your mind right. Thank you for watching. Show us your appreciation by clicking the like and subscribe button. Ring the bell while you're at it so you'll know when we upload a new story.